All right. The other day we talked about types of triangles, and remember there are three types of triangle by angles: acute triangles, obtuse triangles, and right triangles. And there's three types of triangles by sides: equilateral triangles, isosceles triangles, and scaling triangles. But now today we want to talk about types of quadrilaterals. Remember, a quadrilateral is a four-sided figure, okay? And again, excuse me, you have all kind of different looking quadrilaterals. I think most people, when they think of a quadrilateral, think of maybe that, which is a square, okay? But a square is a type of quadrilateral, all right? But there are two major type of quadrilaterals when we start out. The first type is called the trapezoid. And that's one you maybe never heard of before, okay? But a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with one pair of parallel lines. By the way, remember what we mean by parallel lines? Okay? Parallel lines are lines that run side by side and never intersect, okay? So a trapezoid is a quadrilateral that has one pair of these type of parallel lines. So a trapezoid would look something like this, okay? And again, you can see that the bottom and the top are parallel. By the way, those are referred to as the bases. This would be referred to like as maybe base 1, and this would be base 2. And they're referred to as the bases because they're the two parallel lines. And if you wanted to sit this thing down flat on its base, if you would, that's where it gets the name base, you would want to set it on one of these two parallel lines. You wouldn't want to set it on one of the sides because if you set it on an angle, it would just fall, okay? So again, the bases are the two parallel lines, the top and the bottom. You might say, well, what do you call these things over here on the sides? Well, they're called the legs. Like this could be leg 1, and this could be leg 2. All right? And again, just like a table has legs that hold it up, a trapezoid has the two sides holding the one base up from the other base. All right? So this is a trapezoid. By the way, just a side note, you don't really need to know this one, but what do you think you would call a trapezoid where the two legs were congruent? Let's see, it has two of them congruent. I think we'd call that an isosceles trapezoid, okay? And again, that's one of the two major types of quadrilaterals. The second type of quadrilateral is called a parallelogram. And a parallelogram, okay, is a quadrilateral with two pair of parallel lines. And by the way, to have two pairs of parallel lines, since a trapezoid, since a quadrilateral only has four sides, two pairs would be four sides. So in a parallelogram, every side is parallel to another side. By the way, we go back to your square that I said most people think of when they think of a quadrilateral, and guess what? That's a parallelogram because the top is parallel to the bottom and the right is parallel to the left. So the sides are parallel and the top and bottom are parallel. So that is a parallelogram. They said, but I thought it was a square. Well, a square is a type of parallelogram. By the way, there's a lot of other ones, like this one right here. You say, wait, Mr. Du, that's a rectangle. Well, that's the type of parallelogram. And you also have something like this one right here. And you say, that kind of looks like a diamond if you turned it up. Well, that's true. And a diamond is a parallelogram too, because all it needs to be to be a parallelogram is to have two pairs of parallel lines. One day I'll learn how to draw. But again, these are all different types of parallelograms. So now we know there are two basic types of quadrilaterals, trapezoids and parallelograms. Now let's talk about the types of parallelograms, because I just showed you there are a whole lot of different ones. The first type of parallelogram, okay, first type of parallelogram is called a rhombus. You go, a rhombus? What is that? Okay, well, a rhombus, okay, is a parallelogram with all sides congruent. And you go, oh, so a rhombus is a square. No, a square is a type of rhombus, because you're right, a square does have all four sides congruent. Okay, but so does a baseball diamond. All right, because isn't it the same distance from home plate to first, and first to second, second to third, and third to home? So that would also be a rhombus. So to be a rhombus, all you need is all the sides congruent. So you say, so a square is a rhombus. That's right, a square is a type of rhombus, but not the only type. By the way, you also have a rectangle. All right, and everybody knows what one of those looks like, but I wonder if you know the definition of it. Because if you looked at a rectangle, what you would notice about every rectangle, no matter what size it is, okay, a rectangle is a parallelogram with all angles congruent. And again, if you look at all the angles, what do you notice about the angles of any rectangle? They're all L-shaped. And what's an L-shaped angle? A 90-degree angle. So when it says all angles congruent, they all have to be 90 degrees. Okay? And you say, but Mr. Adu, I thought a square has 90-degree angles. It does. And you say, oh, well then a square is a type of rectangle? It is. A square is a type of rectangle. You said, but wait, it's also a type of rhombus. So what the heck is a square? Well, it's kind of like if you took a rhombus and a rectangle and put them together, you get a square. Because a square is a parallelogram with all sides and all angles congruent. And again, that means a square is a rhombus and a square is a rectangle. But it doesn't mean a rhombus has to be a square and a rectangle has to be a square. So the wording is very important there. Because when you say all rhombuses are a square, that's false. Because you could have a rhombus that the angles weren't 90 degrees, okay? But you can't have a square whose angles aren't 90 degrees. So all rhombuses are not squares, but if you say all squares are rhombuses, that's true, because every rhombus has all sides congruent, okay? And again, a square has to have all sides congruent, so a square is a rhombus because it has all sides congruent. Now, if I said every rectangle is a square, that's false. This is a rectangle, it has all 90-degree angles. It's not a square because all the sides are not congruent. So every rectangle is not a square, but every square is a rectangle because every square has to have all 90-degree angles, just like a rectangle does. All right? So again, it seems a little bit confusing in a way that you say it one way and it's true and you say it the other way it's false. But if you think about what the sayings are saying, that's what makes it make sense. By the way, that's a constructed response that you'll have to do when we get back from the holidays, okay? The difference between a rhombus being a square and a square being a rhombus. All right, this should be what you need to know for another one of your IXL assignments that I'm going to give you, okay? And again, some of you have already done it and got 100 on it, so without even knowing about it, you knew how to do it. So that's good, all right? But if you didn't do it yet, hopefully this will help you do it.